Good morning, everyone, and thank you for listening to the TMI show. It's me, Ted Rall. Unfortunately, Manila Chan is, oh my God, I've got like an echo coming from the other room that's driving me a little bit insane, and I'll have to deal with that a bit later. But anyway, you are listening to the Ted Manila Information Show. Unfortunately, Manila is out sick today. Robbie West will be filling in. He's our producer, and he will be well suited for the topic that we're talking about. TMI is TMI for short, where we will bring you way too much information. Everything from news, politics, to lifestyle, culture, fad diets, what the kids are up to, the taboo, the occult, anything and everything goes, because we believe you can never have too much information. If you're looking for a straight-laced, button-down news program, this show, as Manila likes to say, is probably not for you. It's stuff you need to want to hear about, and maybe some stuff you never knew you needed to know. And hopefully we'll have a few laughs along the way. We're here every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock in the morning, that is, every Monday through Friday. So please be sure to like and follow the show, subscribe on YouTube and Rumble. On YouTube, it's free. On Rumble, it's free or paid. That's entirely up to you. But even if you don't pay, it's really, really worth doing. It helps us out in a big way. All right. On today's show, we are going to be talking about the shocking assassination of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare here in New York City. Turns out that people don't really seem to care much that he's dead. So let me bring in Robbie here. Robbie, thank you for sitting in for Manila. And just say something for about 15 seconds while I go mute my other computer so I don't hear this 10-second delay that's making me insane in my ears.
Sounds good, brother. No, Ted, thank you very much for letting me come here. So I am the famous or infamous, depending on how you're looking at it, Putin bot gaming. So that is me. And like what Ted was talking about, if y'all can smash that like button, and if you're on YouTube, click that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. We are more than halfway to get to the 500 subscriber mark. If y'all do that, then people can actually start donating to a show over on YouTube as well. I can tell y'all firsthand, Ted and Manila do a ton of work behind the scenes, and right now they ain't getting paid for it. So if y'all can do that, that will just help them out immensely. And that ain't misinformation. That is 100% factual.
That is 100% factual. All right. So normally, I know Manila will be sad about this, but normally we would have the jaws. So like, just imagine like.
Well, here. What we got?
All right. That's what we got. That's it. Now let's go into the headlines. Okay. So after less than 4 months in power, French Prime Minister Michel Barnier's government has lost a no confidence vote in Parliament over a social security budget dispute. On Wednesday evening, 331 French legislators from left and right-wing parties, out of a total of 577, voted in favor of removing the EU's former Brexit negotiator and his administration, that's Michel Barnier, in France's lower house of parliament. Barnier, 73 years old, was due to officially present his resignation to the president of France, that's Emmanuel Macron, this morning, local time. So presumably that's already happened. The last time a prime minister resigned following a no confidence motion was back in 1962, the year before I was born, when Prime Minister Michel Debré, something about guys named Michel, who served under Charles de Gaulle, the founding father of the Fifth Republic and the president of France, resigned over the crisis in Algeria. Algeria was, of course, the Vietnam War for France, and it tore the country apart. Barnier's resignation not only throws Paris into political turmoil for the second time this year, but it also leaves the country without a federal budget for 2025. A statement from the Élysée Palace, that's the seat of government, the equivalent of the White House in France, said President Macron will address the nation tonight about what happens next. Robbie, I mean, people might be asking why they should care about this.
Well, I think it's two things. One, I think it is the Zelensky curse, because it seems like every time Zelensky goes up in his janitor suit and he puts his arm around somebody, something always bad seems to happen with their government. So there is that. Second thing, I think that just people are just getting sick and tired of their governments caring more about foreign populations, foreign countries than about them. I know I am here in Montana. I'm really kind of get pissed off about we can't have any we can't have nice things because we're too busy supporting a genocide. So maybe some of that's bleeding over in France. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, certainly, the French are, I think, mixed about the rest. The government supporting Ukraine, and there's a mixed bag there. I mean, there's certainly some sympathy for Ukraine, and there was, especially at the beginning of the conflict. But as it's ground on, I think the French are, they've caught on to what kind of person Zelensky is and what kind of government Ukraine actually has, and they've become far less sympathetic. And not to mention, as I mentioned early on, when the war started, France and Russia have long historical ties.
Sure.
There's a lot of sympathy between them. And there's a lot of ethnic Russians who live in France. So it always struck me as a little strange that so many people were ready to side with Ukraine. That said, I think the situation in France is very interesting because what it's about the neoliberal order trying to say, we can, do whatever we want. We can govern however we want.
Well, it's not just Ukraine, because think about all the interventions that France is doing in Africa. How many African countries is France going to get kicked out of?
Oh, I know. It's pretty embarrassing.
It's just, so I think Ukraine is more of a symptom of a bigger problem, and the French people are frankly just fed up with it, and they're looking for their own version of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see soon is an alliance of convenience, possibly. I'm not 100% sure about this, but more likely than not, there's going to be a sort of temporary alliance of convenience between the far left and the far right. They have enough seats between the two of them to form a government. So you could get in the snap elections that were held earlier in the summer, the far left won. It was Jean-Luc Mélenchon and his France Insoumise, France Unbowed party that came in first. And then right afterwards was Jean-Marie Le Pen's party. Marine Le Pen's party. I always think of her father. I'm that old. And her National Rally. And that party is second. So, the two of them, I think the big story here is how in the United States and in the West writ large, the center just doesn't hold. There's not really much appetite for like old-fashioned corporatist neoliberal centrism.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say real quick, thank you to Well Dressed Nerd for the $5 donation. Appreciate that. That helps. That help make sure that we get to stay in French fries and other kind of consumables. So thank you. But no, I completely agree with you. Look at us here. You're to the left. I'm about as far right as you can get. I'm probably to the right of Jesus.
Wait. I think Jesus was a big lefty.
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? But the point is, I want a government that is so small I can drown it in a toilet. But you and me can both agree that the people in the three-piece suits are screwing us both. So I have no problem. And this is probably like it is in France. I don't care if you're a black nationalist. I don't care if you want to walk up and down Main Street flying your rainbow flag, or if you want to have if you're going to wear a white bed sheet. If you will help me fight the man, we can settle our problems later. You let me have my fully automatic rifles. I will give you Medicare for all, and
100% you can have your rifles.
Yeah, 100%. And let's just take on the guys in the middle who are just screwing everybody. So
no, I think that is true, and I think it's super interesting. All right, let's keep going. More news. Okay, so the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside of Midtown Manhattan Hotel on Wednesday morning was a shock to the city and the nation. But as the cops hunted for the missing gunman in what they called a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack, social media erupted with contempt for the healthcare industry he represented and his company in particular. Saw mainstream news coverage about the killing of the CEO of United Healthcare on TikTok, and I think political and industry leaders might want to read the comments and think hard about them, wrote political activist Tobita Chow in a post on X. In screenshots that he shared, TikTok users reacted to the story with blistering references to the costly and often unnavigable for-profit U.S. healthcare system, sending prior authorization I love this. Sending prior authorization, denied claims, collections, and prayers to his family, wrote one.
Yeah.
As someone covered under United Healthcare, I can completely understand the actions taken, wrote an ex-user, replying to a news leak about Thompson's murder being investigated as a possible hit, according to a statement from law enforcement. Did he have a pre-existing condition, asked another. And under an ABC News TikTok on police officers' efforts to find the killer, one user asked, why are they even investigating this? Oof. Got a push notification to exercise caution because the United Healthcare shooter is still at large, noted stand-up comic Samantha Ruddy in her own X-post. I personally do not feel like I am on the shooter's radar because I am not the CEO of a highly divisive multi-billion-dollar insurance company. Thompson's violent death outside a hotel where United was hosting an investor conference didn't just prompt scathing jokes, but heated criticism of the insurer that he was in charge of since 2021. One image that made the rounds online was a chart from the personal finance website Value Penguin, which finds that United denies 32% of all in-network claims relating to individual health care insurance plans, twice the industry average, which, by the way, the industry average is way too high, too. Some pointed to headlines describing how United has used an allegedly faulty AI algorithm to assess claims and deny care for seriously ill patients on private Medicare Advantage plans, as described in an ongoing class action lawsuit brought by the estates of two dead people who were denied coverage for their care at an extended care facility. Among those who amplified the story was right-wing podcaster Tim Pool, suggesting that Americans across the political spectrum can find rare consensus when it comes to disdain for their free market healthcare system. It's actually kind of touching that the one thing that can bring together our fractious and disunited country is celebrating the assassination of a health insurance CEO, wrote University of Virginia historian David Austin Walsh.
Yeah, I shouldn't be laughing, but I've got to admit I am, because he's 100% right. I work in healthcare. I see this crap every single day. That's my main job, and it frankly sucks. And I'll tell you right now, Ted, as someone who's I see this crap every single day, and I cannot tell you just how much, just the letters I see whenever someone gets denied for a medication or a surgery, the appeals that the doctors have to send, and then the letters that the patients send along with those appeals, especially from veterans. Supposedly, the United States values its veterans. It doesn't. My son, he's thinking about joining the military. I'm doing my best to talk him out of it. Why would you go fight for a country that's more like a corporation, that's going to break you mentally, break you physically, and then crap on you whenever you need help? It makes zero sense. Don't do it.
Robbie, this is one of those left-right things. I told my son, it's like, you can become transgender, you can be gay, you can like do anything you want, you can have a dumb fucking job. Yes. But the one thing I will not let you do is join the military, for the exact reason that you described. I mean, if you go back to the earliest foundings of the Republic, veterans have been screwed beginning from the very beginning, right? Like, sure, all the Revolutionary War soldiers were promised a land grant in what was then the West, and the only people who got them were officers and and well-connected people. War of 1812, same thing. There was the bonus army right after World War I, where the vets were supposed to get a bonus, and then when the Depression hit, they were all broke. So they formed they created a tent city on the Washington Mall.
Yeah, and the army attacked them.
The army went and killed them. They massacred them. Basically, and then of course after the Vietnam War, when they all came back crazy and fucked up because of their training, mainly, don't think, shoot, kill. That's a whole topic. They ended up littering the streets of our cities. And being completely insane because they were thrown away. So it's not like ancient Rome, which at least had the idea like, okay, fighting's hard. You fight for the empire, though. You come back, and then we give you a farm, and you can spend your later years tilling the soil in peace. It wasn't like that at all.
No, and one of the things, I mean, most people, I imagine they do now because they hear my accent. I'm from the South, live in Montana, but I migrated because I got tired of mosquitoes and hurricanes. But the South gets a lot of crap because what we call, especially the war between the states or the war of Northern aggression, but Yankees like to call it the Civil War. Where I'm going with this is that after that war ended, the Southern states actually set up a pension system based off of property tax where the state governments actually had pensions for their veterans. There was nothing like that in the United States. So we just got screwed. I mean, that's just, I don't know where I went with that, but there it is. I guess because I'm a history nerd like you are. So we'll just go.
I love that. All right. And we're going to be getting into, that's going to be our topic. Just in about 15 minutes, we're going to delve into the killing of Brian Thompson and more to the point, the reaction to it. And the fact that it seems to be the most popular murder in American history, as long as I can remember. I think more people are happy about Brian Thompson being dead than Osama bin Laden being dead. So, I mean, this guy could probably run for Congress and win at this point. All right, let's move on here. Okay. And he'd be nominated by both parties. All right, here we go. President-elect Trump is not working the phones for Pete Hegseth in his hour of need, leaving the embattled nominee for Department of Defense to press his own case to skeptical senators. I don't think it's going anywhere, one senator told Axios. Why it matters? Trump is on path to lose his third nominee in 2 weeks, and this time he's leaving his candidate out to dry. GOP senators took Trump's handling of the Matt Gaetz nomination as a sign that he's open to changing his mind, and he's not that serious about fighting the Senate on rules or procedures just yet. Trump waged a phone campaign back in November before telling Gaetz to drop out. Before he announced Gaetz, he demanded consideration of recess appointments, but the pipeline of backup names for defense secretaries are now floating to the press, including Ron DeSantis of Florida, the governor there. And this signals that Trump could be open to switching things up again. Hegseth, of course, if you haven't followed this, has been accused basically of being a lush, living at the bottom of a bottle, and being abusive to women. And adding to that whole fiasco was an email that surfaced from his mom to him that was somehow then copied by his mom to his now ex-wife in the middle of a messy divorce. And that got into the hands of the New York Times. And it doesn't paint a pretty picture of Mr. Hegseth, although I'm not sure really what what this has to do with his qualifications or lack thereof for being defense secretary. But, I mean, it's an interesting story. Anyway, his meeting did not seem to go very well with Senator Joni Ernst, his top skeptic in the Senate. Joni's a combat veteran and sexual violence victim. The Iowa Republican issued a bland statement saying that the conversation with Hegseth was frank and thorough. Hegseth has said that women should not serve in combat, so that might have been a little bit of a chill on the conversation. And he also faces sexual misconduct allegations, as just noted. Hegseth promised to stay sober in the job. Oh, that's a low bar. A promise that he made both to Megyn Kelly and during the meeting with Senator Roger Wicker, Republican of Mississippi, after unflattering stories about his use of alcohol. Hegseth pled with House Republicans to publicly endorse him and said that Trump is still on his side after the two talked, still looking for his meetings with those moderate Republicans in the Senate, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski. Murkowski says that she has a lot of questions for the nominee. I would say this is probably as dead as a doornail. And, especially there's two things about it from Trump's point of view. Apparently, Hegseth didn't come clean when he in part of the vetting process and say, hey, listen, a few things might come up that you need to know about Donald. And Donald, understandably, doesn't like that. Nobody would. And also, famously, Donald Trump's brother died when he was 44 years old. And Donald decided to never have another drop of alcohol pass his lips ever since. He hates drinking. He thinks it's really, really bad for you. And it's not like drinking at all is something that would be a problem for him in a nominee. But alcoholism, I think, is just a deal breaker. So I'm guessing that Hegseth is pretty much dead to him at this point.
I think that you're probably right. And, one of the things I was going through and I was reading about him, and it kind of goes back to I talked about the military. He said, Hegseth said that the reason why he was dipping in the bottle so much is that he was self-medicating. from his combat experiences, in the military. Well, if we had a functional medical system or a functional VA system, maybe you wouldn't have to self-medicate, by turning your liver into a sponge. I mean, just call me crazy. Another thing I just want to kind of point out, we're able to go and find an email that the Higgs mama wrote to his ex-wife, but we still don't have the Epstein client list. So how the hell does that even work?
It's a good question. I mean,
priorities.
Yeah, well, I keep hoping that my old buddy Jason Leopold, who used to work at Vice, who is the master of FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, that he I mean, if anyone's working on getting that Epstein list, it's him. And if anyone can do it, it's him. By the way, you shouldn't. He's like a FOIA whisperer. When I had my whole, when I sued the LA Times, I had to, get my files out of the LAPD locker. I could have never gotten them under the Freedom of Information Act just by writing a letter saying, in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, I'd like to get this. The letter has to be massaged in a certain magical Jason Leopold kind of way, or it doesn't work, which is, by the way, what's the word I'm looking for? Bullshit. That's not what the law says at all.
Well, now I've told you and Manila both this. I love having two friends, not just one, but two friends who are editors. Because if any of y'all ever see the correspondence that goes on behind the scenes, they're like, Robbie, you misspelled this, or Robbie, this is not grammatically correct. And I freaking love it because I'm learning so much crap. But to your point, why does something have to be massaged and laundered and fluffed up by someone with 6 or 7 acronyms behind their name? It's nothing more than a barrier to entry from people like me. Just be able to send an email, say, hey, give me my records. What's going on?
It shouldn't be. And it really shouldn't be. And the law is very straightforward. I mean, the law is it doesn't say anything about format. Literally, you should be able to write to the CIA and say, hey, my name is Robbie West, or, here's my full legal name with my middle name, or, it's Robert West, all the permutations. Got anything on me? That should be it.
Well, Ted, I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm not on at least 4 or 5 lists, I'm going to count it as a failure on my part because I need to be on those lists. I'm trying to build up my bona fide as a propagandist or a radical because I married one woman. Yes, I do know what a woman is. No, I'm not a biologist, but I live in Montana. So we get to see nature in all of it. And I mean this sincerely in all of its glory and how procreation works. And so, in today's climate, that makes you radical. And let's see, the well-dressed nerd, he just did another $5 donation.
Oh my God! Thank you, thank you, Mr. Nerd.
So, Ted Rawl and Putinbot, has the public sentiment finally reached eat the rich levels, or are we still nibbling on the appetizer? I think it depends on where you are. Here in Montana, we're flying the middle finger all the way.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's the thing that's interesting, right? I mean, the last election seemed to signal that a lot of Republican voters, Trump voters, they're angry at elites, right? And the question is what is an elite? Who is an elite? Is it someone like me who's left-leaning, who lives on the west on a coast, and lives in a nice apartment, and maybe someone like me, because I don't really go to the opera or anything like that because I hate that shit. But for people who do, is that an elite? For some people, it is. I went to an Ivy League school on scholarship, but still. Or is an elite someone like Brian Thompson, who was just shot down in the street, who actually lived in the Midwest in flyover country, but made $10 million a year of blood money off people who are sick and dying. I mean, define your elites, right? But, I mean, in terms of Nerd's question, I think we're generically as a country, we're nibbling at the edges. I think this is an important moment. And, I had an idea that's kind of pertinent to this for a graphic novel several years ago, where basically a group of vigilantes who are assassins, like the OG cult of the assassins in Central Asia in the Middle Ages, they targeted evil CEOs. And basically they put the word out, after they'd kill them, they'd warn future ones, change your actions or we're going to kill you too. And if they got ignored, they'd kill them. just to basically see if they could change the behavior of corporate America. If this started to be a thing, it would be fascinating.
Well, that's just the thing. And to answer your question about what is an elite, I obviously can't speak for every redneck in Middle America, but I do know quite a few of them, and I am one. I'm a card-carrying member of the Redneck Club, and so the definition that I hear most of the time is people who have these elite degrees who have never done a manual job in their life, who look down their nose at people like me who don't have a college degree. I've never been to college. So I'm one of those uneducated people that Trump loves. Hey, that's me. You look down our nose, and since 2016, calling us a Nazi, calling us uneducated, bitter clingers, and just look down on us, crap all over our culture, tell us how backwards we are, start lecturing us about how I don't want some dude going to the bathroom with my daughter, telling me how much of a bigot I am because of that. And then you wonder why I don't like you. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I think. If you keep calling me a Nazi, racist, bigot, uneducated, homophobe, snot sucker, who's a deplorable, or a piece of garbage, Joe Biden looking at you, and then you wonder why I'm not going to support your candidate or I'm not going to support your policies, well, there you go. Here's your sign. I will fight you every step of that I can. And I don't care how much money you make. It's an attitude.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I think elitism is an attitude. It's about whether you think you're better, more important than anyone else. And I don't think that has anything to do with your accent or even your income level. I mean, maybe it does. I mean, look, if you make $10 million a year, you're an elite. Even if you're the coolest person in the world, you're an elite, though.
But you can be an elite, but not without being a dick.
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's definitely possible, but I'm going to quote scripture here. I mean, it is, about it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Yep. I think it's very hard for a wealthy person to have good values. Money is really corrupting.
No, I completely agree. But one thing I'll tell you is I've never got a job from someone that's poor. So it's, so right. I mean, it works two ways. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm friends with you and Manila. You live in New York City. She lives in DC. I live out in the middle of nowhere in Montana. And y'all are both welcome to my house any day of the week. It's not a problem. Well, you're more welcome.
I can't wait. Yeah.
Now there's this putz who I know lives 5 miles away from me. I would not pee on him if he was on fire today because of his attitude. He's in the same boat that I am, but he is such an elitist sack of crap who just keeps on telling me how backwards I am and how I need to go on the program. And it's just like, yeah, no.
What program? What's his deal?
Well, his whole thing is for people who don't know, my wife is black. My 2 kids are mixed. So he's always telling me he keeps trying to tell me how oppressed my wife and my kids are. My wife is a coder. She has a good career in medicine. Both my kids are enrolled in public education. My wife, they're not out picking cotton, or here in the case of Montana, out shoveling cow crap from dawn till dusk. They're getting education. My son's in the debate team. My daughter, she's involved in sports management. There's no oppression here. Stop telling me that I'm a victim. More importantly, stop telling me that I'm oppressing my wife because of my whiteness or that I'm colonizing her. So that's the attitude that we just have to deal with. And it's these assholes that are coming from California trying again to tell me how backwards we are. If we're so backwards, go back where you came from.
Fair enough. All right, 2 more headlines. Timing is everything. Just as Apple's adoption of RCS. You know what? I'm going to skip this. Actually, it's boring. Sorry. All right, next. Fine. All right, I'm going to roll my elite card here. All right,
do it.
Amnesty International says that it has gathered sufficient evidence to believe that Israel's conduct during the war in Gaza amounts to genocide against the Palestinian people. Charge, of course, that the Israelis vehemently deny. The 296-page report details evidence gathered over the last 9 months, outlining numerous instances in which Amnesty says Israeli forces and government authorities have committed 3 of 5 acts prohibited under the United Nations Genocide Convention, including the mass killing of Palestinian civilians causing serious bodily or mental harm, and deliberately inflicting on Palestinians in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction in whole or in part. Month after month, the report says Israel has treated Palestinians in Gaza as a subhuman group unworthy of human rights and dignity, demonstrating its intent to physically destroy them. Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamand said in a statement. Amnesty said that Israel is responsible for extensive and often indiscriminate aerial and ground attacks. That's obviously true. Widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure, also obviously true. The forced mass displacement of Palestinians across the enclave, and the obstruction of humanitarian aid, all undeniable. There's only one reasonable inference that can be drawn from the evidence presented, the report says. Genocidal intent has been part and parcel of Israel's conduct in Gaza since 7 October 2023, including its military campaign, the report states. Israel launched the war in Gaza after Hamas militants carried out that attack on October 7th, blah, blah, blah. In a little over a year, more than 44,000 people in Gaza have been killed and 104,000 injured as a result of the ongoing military onslaught, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. But the real number is obviously hundreds of thousands. Israel's military called Amnesty's report entirely baseless. I don't think you know what the meaning of baseless is. Baseless means that you've got nothing to go on at all when you come up with a conclusion. I mean, you could say it's unfair, but it's not baseless. Instead, it failed to account for both the operational realities faced within by Israeli soldiers within Gaza. The report's allegations of genocide and intentional harm are not only unfounded, but ignore Hamas's violation of international law, including its use of civilians as human shields and its deliberate targeting of Israeli civilians, the IDF said, adding that the military tries to mitigate harms to civilians, yet not trying hard enough. While Amnesty says that it recognizes that Hamas has put Palestinian civilians in danger by operating from or in the vicinity of densely populated residential areas, the organization asserts that this did not relieve Israel from its own obligations under international humanitarian law to spare civilians and avoid indiscriminate or disproportionate attacks. I mean, I'm sorry, that's some weak tea on the part of the Israelis. It's like Gaza was a very densely populated place. It was almost a cliche for years to say that it was the most densely populated place on earth. I think that turned out to be a little bit false, but it's very densely populated nevertheless. A good comparison is it's the same size and it has the same population as Manhattan. So if you think about that, Manhattan is densely populated. Imagine if you had a group like Hamas that had offices and other bureaus in Manhattan. Where are they supposed to put those offices in a place that is not near civilians? I mean, it's Manhattan. Everything's near civilians.
What I don't know. I mean, it's crazy because the inability of most Americans to look at a map, I don't understand it. Because I mean, if you pull it up, Gaza, in my opinion, is the most densely populated prison on the planet.
Well, that's for sure.
So people keep saying, and I get into this kind of row at church. I go to a small independent Baptist church, so Zionist all the way. I'm the odd man out. I'm like, screw Israel. They're like, oh, God bless Israel. I'm like, nah, screw them. And so that leads for some interesting conversations. But one of the things I always hear is, like what I just now said, well, Hamas is hiding behind civilians. Like, well, no crap. Look at a map. Where else the hell are they going to be? I mean, seriously, where else can you be?
Well, it is. And look, the thing is, Amnesty International is highly reputable and very mainstream. And so, I mean, it's bad for the Israelis. I mean, obviously, this is just obviously an accurate assessment, and it shouldn't really be daring to just say what everyone can plainly see. It's not like who do the Israelis think they're fooling here? when they're claiming that they have the most moral army on earth, that like they try to protect civilians, that they're letting food into Gaza. I mean,
Yeah, letting food in
do
for
they
the
think
gangs
we're
to steal.
all fucking idiots? I mean, what's
Yes.
the story? Yeah.
Yes, that they do. Because I mean, now here's the thing: what they're doing, they're playing for the boomers. That's what they're doing. They're putting out this Zionist porn, for lack of a better word. It's red meat for the Zionists, for the old crusty white guys who are on the Republican end. It's like, okay, the Bible says, incorrectly by the way, that God's going to bless those who bless Israel. Doesn't say that, but that's what they go with. And then they try and also go for the lefty Jews who vote overwhelmingly Democrat. And elections are typically pretty tight. And so they're just trying to play that margin. I don't think Israel really cares so much about what the rest of the world thinks. I think they care about what the U.S. Congress thinks, because America is their shield. Or more to the point, I kind of got into it with the deacon at the church. I said, America is Israel's bitch. So
true.
That's what they're playing for. Because so long as the United States is able to go up and veto UN resolutions, nothing's going to happen to them. Right. And so this is just a play for AIPAC, just political cover.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. All right, let's go ahead. We have no Jaws, but let's go ahead and get into the Brian Thompson story. So
good shooting.
All right.
Yep,
We've done that now. Right into it. Okay, so let me bring us in here. Yesterday morning, the 50-year-old CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, was shot to death on the sidewalk in midtown Manhattan. That's about a 20-minute subway ride away from me on West 54th Street, by an unknown assailant. Even including the reaction to the death of Osama bin Laden, it's hard to think of another high-profile murder that has been greeted with as much glee and schadenfreude by the American public. Comment sections in news stories and social media were filled with comments about how Brian Thompson had it coming. Hopefully that this is the first of many, and countless jokes about the bullet that killed him being a pre-existing condition. Almost no one expressed sympathy. And so we wanted to dig into this. United Healthcare is one of the most hated big companies in the United States, in large part because it denies its customers claims at a higher percentage rate than any other insurer, and they all do it. Thompson, paid over $10 million a year, was a poster boy for an industry whose profit model relied upon making people sick and dead to maximize their earnings. The hatred was internal as well as external. Even as company executives raised their own pay, they laid off thousands of their own workers. Adding to the intrigue, Thompson was being investigated by the Justice Department over a $15 million sale of United stock suspected as insider trading, and which caused a sell-off. What was the motivation behind the assassination? Will other healthcare executives reconsider their business model? Or will they just hire additional security? Could this help to spark a national conversation about for-profit healthcare? One thing is for sure, it's 100% clear that Americans of all political stripes hate the healthcare industry. Because in America, whether you have insurance or not, you don't get healthcare. And I wanted to put that in there, Robbie, because I think that last line is really important, right? Yeah. We often focus on the uninsured, people who, just they don't have healthcare. I think, but what's appalling is that the people who do have healthcare, whether through their employer or paid through the Affordable Care Act / Obamacare, you're like, I should be covered. I pay for this. Sometimes quite a lot. I mean, I've paid as much as $1,200 a month for shitty healthcare. And you're like, I pay $1,200 a month. I don't smoke. You know what I mean? I'm in good health. Like, why am I paying $1,200 a month and nothing's covered? There's always these deductibles. I know the ACA got rid of the pre-existing conditions thing. There's the pre-authorizations, right? Like, in my view, when the doctor says you need a test, an operation, a referral, the doctor is the emperor. The doctor is the boss. If doctor says you need it, you get it, period. And the insurer's job is to pay for it. Right. That's it. And there should be no arguing whatsoever about that. And I think most Americans probably agree with me. By the way, one little thing worth noting for people who, by the way, if you're just joining us, You're listening to the TMI show, and Robbie West, our producer, is filling in here for Manila Chan. Hopefully Manila will be back tomorrow. She's out sick today, not feeling well at all. She's in the bowels of the healthcare process right now,
living
as we speak. She's living it. I'll be curious what exactly they made her pay. I was in the health anyway. The three bullets that were recovered and the casings that were recovered at the scene apparently were inscribed with something that appears to refer to the title of a book called Delay, Deny, Defend by Jay Feinman. The subtitle is Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It. The words weren't exactly the same, but they were analogous, very close. So it seems like this was a political statement, and it was a personal act. And I think everybody's got horror stories. I'm going to tell some here of my own, but when I was in 1985, I drove a taxi. I had a bad accident. I rolled the taxi over a few times and took out a couple of parked cars. And at the time, the ambulance showed up, and they said, "Oh, it's going to be $295 just to get into the ambulance." Now, bear in mind, this was 1985, so that's like $1,200 or $1,400 now. And I was like dirt broke. I was like, "Well, I forget it. Go away. Go home." So a year later, I finally get a job that has health insurance. I go to get a full workup, and they're like, "Hey, did you know that you had broken your knee, and also that you have a fracture in your skull?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." And they're like, "Yeah, that's right." It's like, so you had to so basically I didn't seek medical care. That's a standard thing, right? For people who are poor. And even when you are insured, I'll just tell a bunch, I could just go on and do this for hours. I won't. But 3 years ago, during the middle of the pandemic, I had a hernia. I got, I know how evil health insurers are. So I got a pre-approval code. I go in, I wait 4 hours for my operation. They wheel me in. I'm under the big giant light in the operating room, and they're like, "Oh, actually, your insurance company, they changed their mind. You're not actually covered for this." And I'm like, "Oh, what do you want me to do?" And they're like, "Well, you can just go home, or you can put $4,000 on your credit card right now." So literally, I'm like, "Okay, well, can you go get my wallet from the prep room, and I will now." And so literally, I'm on the operating table signing my name for this insane, stupid fucking thing. Oh, and so I wrote to them. And by the way, if you have a bill like this that's not covered, you can write to a hospital, and sometimes they'll give you what they call financial aid. The total bill was $12,000. So I wrote to them, and they said, "Okay, yeah, no problem. We're knocking it down to the $4,000 you put on your credit card." So did I ever stop getting the bills for the remaining $8,000? I still get them. I have sent in a copy of the letter that says you've got the financial aid 14 times. Nothing ever happens. The bill never goes away. I mean, this is just one of zillions. I mean, and I didn't die. Nothing. People do die.
Yeah. I mean, but you know why that happened, don't you?
Tell me.
So what it is that you get a bill for facilities. Then the physician works for what's called a physician group. Then that physician group does its own separate billing. Then you get billed for the supplies that are coming in. So basically, it's not just one bill. So it's additive, and so every different section, every different piece goes into this. Like my full-time job is medical records. So what I do is I build charts, and I do it for two reasons. One, make sure that the real Ted Rawl is getting the right type of blood for a blood transfusion.
Sure.
But the other thing is for billing, because everything goes to that documentation, and then it's all distributed out through all of these different segments, all these different pieces of it. And then the hospital will send off a bill. The insurance company at that point, if they approve it, they then will say, "Okay, well, we have a maximum of this that we're willing to pay." Then the hospital then either has to write off the remaining balance, or what they do is that they then bill that out to their different subsidiaries. So that's why you're getting all these different bills. It's all bullshit. It's all crap. I deal with this mess every single day. And like I said, I'm a right winger. I want a government that's so small I can drown it in a toilet. However, that being said, I fully support Medicare for all because the system's already socialized anyway. I mean, it's a bastardized system. So it's people try to say we have a free system, free system healthcare. We don't. It's a controlled monopoly that is crony capitalism. So it's really fascist in nature, in that the government and the corporations are married together. That's why you can't have insurance from out of state cover something that's done. Like, I guarantee you, if you bought, say, Blue Cross Blue Shield from Montana, it would be cheaper than what you're paying for right now in New York. But you can't do it. It's against the law because it's a government controlled monopoly.
Right.
It's all crap.
It's all, it's even by county, right? The rates in the Affordable Care Act system.
Depending on where you are.
Yeah. And no, I mean, the thing is, I know, look, having insurance, as someone who's had insurance pretty much consistently for decades now, I still don't seek care because I know it's going to be like, I'll get screwed. I'm 61 years old. I had my first colonoscopy just a few months ago. And, you're supposed to start when you're 50. I didn't do it because my ex-wife got one on my old plan. And I was worried and I checked everything. But then I got hit by a surprise $12,000 bill for the out-of-network anesthesiologist, right? Which there's no way to know that they bring in the anesthesiologist, at the last second. You're not told who, this is, it's like the thing is, what you said is right. I mean, not only is it a monopoly and it's a cooperation between government and it's a partnership between government and big business, but on top of that, they have a product that you can't refuse, which is healthcare. It's like, oh, do you like having a broken arm, or would you like us to fix your broken arm? I went in with I broke my wrist a week ago. I go to the doctor's the doctors. I check my little. I call up there. Do you take my insurance? They take my insurance. I go over there. Oh yeah, actually we don't take your insurance. And they're like, I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'm about to get on an airplane tomorrow. They're like, oh well, you can just go home. I'm like, okay, or I can pay out of pocket. How much? And so I ended up paying just shy of $600. And I'm going to now, of course, I'm going to go for a follow-up visit, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're unemployed.
And I'm unemployed. Am I going to go to am I now going to go to to a different doctor, get them up to speed, get new x-rays taken? No, I'm going to go to the same guy because I actually liked him and I can afford it. But why should I? I mean, my feeling as a socialist is that anything that is an absolutely required service, and there's food, healthcare, shelter, transportation, I would include in that, but education, those things should be free. They should be provided by the government. And I don't know. I mean, it's obviously, I keep thinking about how the current system is a reaction to the way there was a lot of healthcare fraud in the 1970s. 60 Minutes always had exposés about it. Doctors writing scripts, by the zillions to non-fictional patients or patients who didn't need it, and then getting kickbacks from the providers and the labs and all that. And but the thing is, this solution is worse than the problem that it purportedly solved. And these health insurers, they're not providing a service, right? They don't help you. All they do is they stand between you and your doctor to deny care. That's it, and extract money.
Well, now here's the thing. I work with doctors as part of my job. I can tell you as an absolute statement of fact, and don't take my word for it. No, those of you watching me online, you don't know me from Adam. Next time you go to the doctor, ask them, how many support personnel do you have working just for billing for every nurse that you have working for you? I guarantee you, for every nurse or medical or medical assistant they have working for them, they got 3 or 4 people working behind the scenes just for billing. I guarantee you that's the case because I'm in it. I'm part of the reason why your healthcare sucks. That's just that's the reality.
Well,
I build your chart, and then I make sure it goes to the coders. The coders go through, they build all this stuff out. And then there's different guidelines that you have to go through based on the documentation that the doctors write out. And then you have different kind of visits that charge different, that you're billed for depending on what it is. And that's one of the reasons why our healthcare system sucks. And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying I don't know who this guy is that killed this Thompson fella, but Trump should pardon him right now and make him the head of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Well, that job's taken. He'll have to share the spot with RFK Jr. But
that's okay. Do it.
Yeah. So let's get. So really, truly. You're a Christian. I was raised Catholic. We believe in forgiveness, and grace. What does it say about us as a country that so many of us, and us too included, right? Yeah. We really just don't give a shit that this guy's dead.
No one bit.
And we don't really care about his. It's sad for his family. Blah 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 blah. But his wife said, "Oh, he was a good person." I'm like, by definition, he was not a good person.
No.
He couldn't have been a good person, Mr. Insider Trading,
No.
Mr. $10 million a year. Can a good person have a job like that? I don't think so.
Well, it just depends, right? Could you be a good person and be involved in the slave trade?
Right. That's exactly. I'd say no.
Because you are
be a good person and
you're
be in
dealing
the
with human bodies, right?
Can you be a good person?
That's the business model. I am buying and selling a human being.
Right.
Now, one is chattel labor. You can be out there with a dirt farmer, like where my family comes from, picking cotton, or my wife's family. Her great grandfather was a slave. They worked on the same freaking farm. But so you have this dude who owns another person. So I guess that you can make the argument that the health insurance company doesn't own your body, but the system does.
Yeah, well, this is literally. I gotta say, there's something absolutely fucking insane that we don't talk about this, right? That someone who's never laid eyes upon you at some insurance company in Hartford or Minneapolis or wherever, they determine whether or not you should get, your mole removed, or whether your colonoscopy should be covered, or whether you need that test or whatever, physical rehab. Do you qualify? That's sick, right?
I completely agree. And this dude, I was watching the security camera footage, and it looks like when he went to shoot the CEO, it looks like the first shot jammed. This dude, he took the time. He knew what he was doing. I shoot a lot. Live in Montana.
So what happens when the gun jams, right? Like, so what does that mean? Like,
well, it was a stovepipe jam. So with a semi-automatic gun, if you go to shoot, if there's not enough powder in the primer, and the case doesn't eject all the way, it'll get stuck. It'll get stuck in the action. So you got to clear it again. If you don't know what you're doing, you can panic. You don't really know how to clear that jam.
You might make it worse, right? You might jam it in there tighter.
Well, you really can't jam it in there tighter. But what'll happen? They just click on the trigger, and the gun doesn't shoot anymore.
Nothing's happening.
Now, this dude, he knew how to clear the jam. He did it like a pro. He just went in, just nailed him 2 more times. Just like this guy, it was personal. He took the time. He knew where this guy was going to be. He was going to make sure that it was him, that this guy was not going to walk away. And so he took the time to learn his firearm. He knew how to shoot. He had a good stance. Props to the guy.
I know. Well, I was also thinking this is someone who either lives in or knows New York City pretty well, because he knew to just get on a bike and just head for Central Park, which is an area that doesn't have a lot of cameras. You disappear into the park, go into one of the many wooded areas, ditch your bike, or don't ditch your bike. But, he had that backpack. That backpack had clothes in it, right?
Oh, of course.
No question. He changed clothes somewhere in there and then just walked out, right? And lots of people are walking in and out of Central Park every day. Initial reports said that he had taken a city bike, which is a bike share program managed by Lyft. But that turned out not to be true. It looked like it was a individual bike. So I'm curious if the cops ever found the bike. He seems to have made one big mistake, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. He went to Starbucks, which seems foolish because now we have images of his eyes and nose. Right. So there's some facial recognition software possibilities there, but that's not even what I'm alluding to. He got a bottle of water and a coffee, and he threw them both away. The cops have those.
So they have his DNA then.
There's DNA, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you're like me and you've never done 23andMe, but if he has any relatives who have, like the Idaho, the guy who's accused of the Idaho serial killing, in the dorm, right? I guess you could say the college house. They can nail you down with that stuff, right? So, I mean, why would you do that? Well, I mean, that to me just seems like that's a rookie error, no?
I would think so, and I don't know the guy, obviously.
Why not take it with you? By the way, throw that in the backpack.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, if I was going to go waste somebody in Manhattan, I've never been to New York, but I know a good friend of mine who lives there. It seems like to me, if I was going to go to one of the most heavily surveilled cities on the planet with cameras everywhere, I don't think I would go to a Starbucks. For one thing, as a conservative, I try to stay away from Starbucks. So I would just take my own, just saying.
As someone who likes coffee, I try to avoid Starbucks because their coffee is not that good.
Well, it's more like syrup. I mean, I've had it before, wasn't impressed. So, if I have a celebratory to drink a coffee, I'll just take a thermos. I'm just saying. So the only thing I can figure is that this guy, he must, in the back of his mind, know that eventually he's going to get caught no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. And so he just does not care. He's sending a message. And I think that maybe when this thing all goes down, you'll find out that after he made sure this guy was no longer a network, then he decided to just opt out on his own and just leaves a manifesto. Or when he does get arrested, he wants to make sure that he is able to tell the whole country why he did what he did. That's the only thing I can figure, is that he knows he's going to get caught, and he's going to either leave a postmortem manifesto, or when he gets arrested, when he goes to trial, he's going to tell you, me, Joe Citizen, everybody else, this is why I did it, and you should do it too.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I guess the question is, could this spur, I know it's kind of like gay to think this, but could we end up with a V for Vendetta kind of scenario where other healthcare and other perhaps evil CEOs, like maybe defense contractors or people like that, could end up having to watch their backs?
At the hospital, Ted, we have trainings 2 to 3 times a year. This is in Podunk, Montana, where I am. Teach you how to de-escalate people if they come in pissed off because of a bill or because of bad treatment or something else like that. And they're always worried about the cowboy snapping and coming in here, with his AR-15 or AK-47 shooting up the hospital. And is that a consideration? Sure. I mean, this is America. Nothing's more American than mass shootings and apple pie. I mean, let's just be honest. So, I mean, is that there? But to go to your point, I think there's just so much anger. There is so many people are so pissed off.
Yeah.
And most people, they know that the person who's screwing them over is not the clerk behind the desk. It's not the doctor. Typically, if it screws up, maybe.
No.
It's
if the
not,
doctor screws up, that's a human being making a mistake.
100%. But I think that what it is that I think that you touched on earlier is that the real fear is that people are going to start going at, or just going to say, screw it, the system sucks. There is no solution. I'm going to burn it down. And I think that's the problem. I think that's the risk. That's where your V for Vendetta thing comes in. There is no justice in this country. I mean, my second highest bill is health insurance after my rent. It just is. And there's not a lot of money here in Montana. And imagine this that way pretty much all over the country. So my healthcare plan, like yours, is don't get sick. Well,
Yeah.
what happens if you get sick? You're then at the mercy of some business where you are nothing more than a number on a spreadsheet, where you have to beg to get a service that you have paid for. And
they play games, right?
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
they routinely just issue denials, even though all the paperwork is perfect.
Yeah.
All the codes have been entered correctly.
Yeah.
And United Healthcare, as we talked about in the intro, literally has deployed AI to automatically, without even a human being there, never mind a human being who knows you personally, to automatically deny claims by elderly patients.
Yeah, I'm about to tell you one of the dirty little secrets about healthcare. If you work for an insurance company, you have a quota about how many claims that you deny a month.
Wow.
You have a quota about how many claims it is that you have to deny,
That's
even
disgusting.
if the claim is valid. Let's just say if 90% of the claims that you got are all done right.
It's like the police, right, with quotas for tickets.
It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And my wife, who's a coder, has to deal with this crap all the time. You have to go through, you have to submit appeals, and insurance is only good for up to a year after it's initially been submitted. Well, if you drag that thing off long enough, you're out of the time frame, in which case you cannot get the service that you paid for. It is complete crap.
Yeah.
And that's where the left and the right can do like this and be like, screw these guys.
Well, look, I don't think this is going to happen, but Donald Trump, big disruptor, president-elect, he could score some major points. I mean, he does pay attention to social media, as we know. He's very well aware of this story. Interesting, he has not had a thing to say about it on Truth Social. No comment, not like, pity to see that this guy is dead. So I wonder, if this is kind of like, wow, this is a good issue for me. I mean, that would be massive. You know how in politics, the big moments are when someone goes counter to brand. Richard Nixon goes to China. Those are the big moments. And for a Republican president to do something about healthcare would be massive. And Democrats couldn't stand in the way, right? Because this is supposedly their issue, even though they haven't done shit about it, really.
Yeah. Do you think RFK Jr. can or will do anything?
Well, I think he can if he's got the support from the White House, from the president, and from a sufficient number of senators. I mean, it depends what the solution is. The Affordable Care Act, you could probably sort of duct tape it together by adding a public option, but we'd still have the underlying problem that we just described with all these denials and such. I mean, we need a sweeping series of regulations on this completely unregulated, out of control business sector that is screwing tens of millions of Americans every single day.
Yeah, my solution as a small government conservative is to put every insurance company out of business and nationalize healthcare.
Well, I agree with that.
Done.
Completely. All right. Well, as a lefty, obviously, I can't but say no. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the TMI show. We seriously hope that you will be back tomorrow, and we certainly hope Manila will be back tomorrow. Please subscribe here on Rumble as well as on YouTube. On Rumble, please become a paid subscriber, or please consider becoming a paid subscriber. It's $5 a month, so that we can, keep doing this show. If you enjoy what we're doing and find value in what we're doing, you got to help support it. That's how these things work. We're fully independent completely, and we rely on you subscribers to keep this going. So please click on that button right below the Rumble chat to support the show. Thanks to Putinbot Gaming, who's that guy, for your support and moderating the chat. And please go check out that gaming channel, Putinbot Gaming. And also over on
such a troll
on YouTube. Please subscribe. And if you're listening on the audio, I mean, we shouldn't forget that lots of people don't watch, but they do listen. Please add us to your regular subscription list. That's greatly assisted. None of this costs you anything except for the $5 a month. So, and that's only an option that you don't have, that you can avail yourself if you want to.
And thank you, Will Just Nerd, for the two donations today.
Much appreciated to Mr. Nerd. And you can check out my other stuff at rall.com, RALL.com. Robbie West, thank you so much for filling in for Manila today. Manila,
happy to do it.
Please get better, and we hope you're back tomorrow. But if not, maybe Robbie will be back here sitting on the right side of your screen. So bye, everyone, and take care.